All right, hey YouTubers, this is Matt Sawyer. I'm live, so whatever happens, happens. But anyway, I am the jazz director and assistant band director at Pascal High School, Fort Worth, Texas. Work with a wonderful staff there with Brian Wright, head director, director of bands. I teach Jazz 1, he teaches Jazz 2, and our top wind ensemble. I teach one of the concert bands as well, and so I'm primarily over the jazz program and have the privilege to have just finished my first year. And before that, I was a private lesson teacher, but this year I'm just concentrating on all things Pascal. And having said that, I was at Brookhaven College for a little while, and that's in Farmers Branch, Texas. And every year we do a jazz master class on these etudes, and that's Labor Day weekend. So on Labor Day weekend, it's September 2nd this year. Starts at 9 o'clock, so 9 to 10:30 a.m. An hour and a half of jazz with myself and usually someone also really heavy into jazz in the area. Last year it was Garrett Wingfield, who's over at Texas Women's University as the jazz director, and but hopefully there'll be a good crowd of people, and encourage you guys to all come to that. Students and your private lesson teachers and band directors, send people our way. All right, so enough talking. I'm going to play a few courses over rhythm changes just to get started. So, like I said, whatever happens, happens. Kind of how I roll. All right, so just a few things about rhythm changes in B flat. I'm on tenor, but if you're on any of the instruments, some things are highly uncommon. So we could just start by breaking the tune down into its actual parts. So where did it come from? It's rhythm changes, so it's based off of a tune called I Got Rhythm, George and Ira Gershwin. So let me play some of that for you. All right. So one thing I like to get my students doing right away is learning that melody and then figuring out where they want to embellish. So here's a few ideas. So there are different ways you could do that. That's a lot of embellishment, more than I'd like to do. So there are many ways to interpret the melody, and I think that that is going to help you with your creative aspects of your solo, more so even than getting all of the harmonic elements down. Just being really familiar with the ins and outs of using the melody. So there are other famous melodies that can go over that, but that's where it came from. One of them is the Flintstones. It's really valuable here on the bridge. Being able to take a motif or little melody and doing it in different keys. So across those 4 different chords on the bridge, basically, all those 7 chords that connect by fourths, you can play the Flintstones melody, and it works great over the bridge. Another one I like to use is this little melody from a big band tune I played when I was in high school. I just always liked it because it went in different keys. So it was called Diggin' Roots. And it would keep going in fourth. I could thank my high school band director, Gary Meggs, for that one. He's now at University of Arkansas Monticello doing a camp there later this summer, so kind of excited about that. But it's funny where all this stuff comes from, and as a high school student, you know, now's the time to really engage yourself in learning these kind of things, because it stays with your playing for a long time. So anyway, back to Diggin' Roots. When you get to the bridge, I'm just targeting thirds there. But anyway, so the first chord on the bridge, let me find my bearings for a second. So that's a really cool line, and it goes across those 4 keys really well and connects to the next chord. So you can be creative with how you do it, you know. So many ways. Here's another one. Wait. Yeah, stuff like that. Let's see. Another thing to think about is what is that? What is the Diggin' Roots? It's just the major blues, and then it ends as if you were going down the minor blues scale. But just a little motif there, starting on the flat 7. So. You put turns on it, make it more creative. Okay, so that's something that you can expand upon to sound pretty good over the bridge. or to navigate from chord to chord more naturally, you know. Stuff like that. Okay, so that's something you can practice and expand upon. Another idea is that you can take that motif and just play it down in half steps. So you start on concert D7. And then the last one. So going down in half steps will get you from concert D back to concert B flat. So you can play, you know. And that's the fifth of concert B flat. So that resolves itself really nicely. So there are a lot of tunes that jazz musicians used creative devices on the bridge, and one of them was like I think I got that one from a little bit from Dizzy Atmosphere, Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, but Frank Pepperelli, I think. But anyway, putting that all together isn't so easy, but you know, over time, jazz musicians created you know, chord substitutions and different creative aspects to play over the bridge. And one of them would be just to descend chromatically from the first chord on down. And there are other series of 2-5-1s you can do. But I say start simple. This is what I'm kind of doing. And let's say you're thinking of the Flintstones when you get to the bridge. Rather than playing that, because that's kind of cheesy, right? You know. And by the end of the bridge, you're kind of playing in B flat anyway. Little B flat vocabulary. Okay, so when I was talking about simplifying, because the bridge is the most complicated part, right? Rhythm changes is, you know, 4 series of 8 bars. First 8 bars is, I call that A. Second 8 bars is A prime. Then the third 8 bars is the bridge, so that's the B section, and then the last 8 bars is A prime again. It's the same exact chords. So 3/4 of the tune is very similar, just that bridge is a little different. So 32 bar form, split up in A prime, A prime, B, the bridge, and then last 8 is A prime. So I like to think of it as you can play in B flat. Well, it's just very simple, you know, you need to like simplify this stuff a lot. And that's why you would hear like Lester Young, and it's used nowadays as well with Chris Potter and other awesome tenor players, etc. Just repetitive notes, you know. Just using the alternate fingering stuff. That's you know, minor blues. There's a little bit of major blues in there too. And then when you get to the bridge, it's one of my favorite things to play there, is the Crimea River sub going down. So we'll get in that into that more detail in just a moment, but because Crimea River has its good usage. Crimea River is basically 9-1-5 flat 3 2-1 da da dee da da da. So it has so many usages over this rhythm changes. And what you're really trying to do when you're recording for Jazz Allstate, and others can argue with me, but what you're really trying to do is you're trying to stand out. And one way you can do that is by having studied so many aspects of it. So that way, as a judge, they're sitting there and they're like, this person's immersed in jazz. That's really what this is about, in my humble opinion. And whenever I was a senior in high school and I was fortunate enough to finally make the All-State Jazz Band in Texas, I got second tenor. Shout out to a good friend of mine, Clay Pritchard, who's in Denton and Dallas area, plays with Emerald City. Just an awesome tenor player, one of the Thelonious Monk competition, jazz saxophone competition semi-finalist a few years ago. So anyways, he just happened to be first tenor that year as a sophomore in high school when I was a senior. So and it was over rhythm changes. That was the etude that year. So this kind of sticks out to me a lot because I'm sitting there thinking, what did I study, and how did I land in this band? And then I saw him again at North Texas a few years later, and he played lead tenor in the 1 o'clock, and I played second tenor. So it's pretty cool. So you're always just learning and stuff. But I just wanted to make a quick shout out to him because rhythm changes. Some of the ideas that I have are from being competitive like that with somebody like-minded, in that they immerse themselves in jazz. I think that's what this is all about. And I even remember seeing him while I was a junior in college, and I think I was in the 5 o'clock lab band that year, and had moved to the 1 o'clock the next year. But that's another story. I was inspired, watching him play, and it was over this Little Pixie, I think, was the tune that they were playing, and it was open playing, and it started with him. And he, one of the things that he played was, he was playing in C a little bit, and then when it got to the or the B flat, I'll speak in concert pitch. Then when it got to the E flat, so the 4 chord, that was followed by an E fully diminished circle, right? He played something to that variety. So what I like about that line, and I stole that from him, it's just an arpeggio, and then he goes up a half step, but maintains the upper arpeggio. So it's the correct arpeggio for that in tenor pitch, the F sharp fully diminished chord. And then you get to the 5th, the G. So you're playing, Okay, so that's just, it's cool to be able to just say, I'm here and I'm going to arpeggiate these chords. So instead of being, like, save your arpeggios for later. And then one of the ones that I like to do that I hope I made up, I might have gotten it from Brecker or something, but I like that because it's once you have made it to the E flat on tenor, so concert D flat, you're actually over that diminished chord anyway. You're playing lines over it, and then it just sounds bluesy. And I just put turns on it to make it cooler. So there's lots of stuff that you can do with it to make it less complicated. So what I want to do now is I'll just play over the A sections a little bit, and I'll stop myself before I get to the bridge. And I'll stick to those ideas. I'll arpeggiate over the 4 and the diminished chord, that's changing on the half notes, and then I'll play more simply, like just in C kind of stuff, or B flat, I mean. some ideas to kind of bounce off and make them your own, which is kind of what I do when I practice. I just think of all these ideas I've heard. Like I said, it's all about jazz immersion. So you can play all these cool ideas or whatever, but you just need to be immersed in jazz, because when someone hears you play on these recordings, that's what they're really kind of thinking about is vocabulary, and that you only get that from a lot of listening and intense study and putting it in your own playing, practicing a lot. But the immersion part is kind of what I'm trying to, to make a big deal out of. Okay, now let's look at just a couple of different heads that you can play also over this. Another rhythm changes head is the theme, Miles Davis. You can try to harmonize or be creative with the melody there. And then the bridge is just improvising. See how I can use those there. Anyway, then you're in the last A again. It's okay to be a little silly with that kind of stuff. But you can use that in your solo at the very beginning. Like, you could start your solo. The track has a little intro, and then you're in. So you could be like, okay, so once you kind of get playing in some circles, is what I call it, which is what's happening to me. My muscle memory is kicking in, or some idea in my head is on a loop. Then you can sort of think of ways to craft your solo so that doesn't happen. Okay, so it's still improvising, but it's something that I like to do. So if you were to craft your solo in such a way that because this is an audition, it's like, it's trying to be in the All-State Jazz Band, and now there's two, but yeah, trying to be in the top of the state, and so you want to stand out, you want to show the right things in that time period, and I haven't even gone through what are the most important things, which are your sound, your style, your articulation, your swing feel. That doesn't even have to do with any of your vocabulary or ideas. So I think those things are on the forefront, and it's hard to get into all of that detail in just one little live recording session thing. But your sound, if your sound is mature, your swing feel is happening. You're playing a really well crafted, developed, very mature solo. And when you make your recording, you're in the heat of the moment. A lot of things can happen. Don't get flustered. It happens to me all the time. Just kind of keep squeezing on, and just be honest with yourself and squeeze out your ideas. Because the goal, of course, I just always think about this Charlie Parker thing of, you think of an idea and it's here. So the distance needs to get smaller and smaller every day. And that takes a lot of practice and time and immersion, So, that's all my best advice there. But as far as, developing some vocabulary, so we could be specific. Let's start with the first chord. The first chord is B flat 6/9. Okay, so whenever I was growing up, I was kind of teaching myself all this stuff, and I still think about it sometimes, maybe in an unusual way, and have had some arguments. But let's just look at it. What I did was I just wrote out the scale. I always like to think as simple as I can. So first chord is B flat 6/9. So I would just write my B flat major scale, and then I would flat the 7, so it becomes a dominant chord, because that's I think that's kind of important. And then you can change that if you want to based on what sounds you like and all that. I like to think of jazz as trial and error as well. So, if something doesn't work or you don't like it, then just change it. And then you learn by recording yourself and playing it back. Anyway, I'm going on a rant, a ramble, trying to stay on topic. So, you write out that chord, 6, 9, and then I circled the 6, and that's really just your major blues, the difference between the major and the minor blues. So, that's the sound that it's kind of looking for. And then you can add the 9, which is, this is where I've had an argument with somebody. I said, this 2 and the 9 are the same. That's because I like to keep things simple. I understand it's an extension, etc., and important for rhythm section players. But for me, that it's the sound of that note, depending on what range I choose, whatever. But anyway, that's for another day. So I just think of that first chord as a dominant chord with the major blues sound. Kind of makes me think of using another head. Lester leaps in. So you could use these melodies in your solo as long as you don't use them too much, But you have to know all of them. So there's nothing wrong with quoting some stuff. I just over quoting is a little silly, but it's good to allude that you are studying the language. You want to convey that kind of stuff. So let's see. So if you could successfully sing each chord, not chord, but each root of every chord, then you would have a good idea of how to navigate through them. Because I've already said you could just play in B flat or B flat, major blues, minor blues, pentatonic, and that's kind of how I teach it, and just being very simple. Like, I'm just going to play only roots this solo. I'm going to play only thirds. I'm only going to play fifths. I'm only going to play flat sevens. I'm going to even try major 7 and see if it works. And you're just trying to use these different sounds and see what happens. And then you try to do that over every chord in real time, and that's pretty tough. But if you could sing, da da dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da, or dee da dee da for the last one. If you can sing those or hear those in your head, then you'll have more success navigating all of this. Try to fit in a quick little melodic line there. I got this one from Sonny Stitt. I don't know where it's from. I ask a lot of people in the area that are jazz history buffs what these came from, but because I love these obscure things, and one of them is something like that. So I like just sliding from the 5 to the 1, and you can use the chromatic scale, going up and down. Little ideas like that. Okay, so once you get these ideas under your belt, it's your goal is to stay in time to feel really good. Okay, besides playing with the play along recording a lot, you're gonna want to meet up with some friends and play. Find you a bass player, find you a drummer, piano, guitar, whatever. Come up with your own combo and play with these guys and gals, and make some music, and just say, okay, I want to play these different rhythm changes heads with you, and you're gonna learn how to play in time really fast, And I also, when I get bored of play along tracks, or I can't practice with a group of people, I like to find just drum only tracks online. I'll go to YouTube and I'll type in, drum track 200, chord 1 equals 200. I can always find something, and I'll play with it, and I can practice at 200. You know. Now I got that from Frank Foster. I'm getting better at remembering where I got all this stuff, and then I should have kept a more thorough notebook. I did keep some notebooks, but anyway, play with your friends, make this more fun. I use this in my teaching. Like in a full big band, I make everyone get up, take a solo, and trade, and say, okay, you're only going to play over these two chords, over this A section. So that way they can kind of internalize where everything's at. And yeah. So if you stayed with me this long or listened to all this, you know that there's a lot to this, but this is just kind of just diving in and giving you some things to chew on that you can practice on your own. So to kind of recap. So you have a rhythm, I got rhythm head that you need to learn. There's some other melodies that we looked at, like Lester Leaps In. Okay, one of them that I didn't touch on is Oleo. Depending on what recording you listen to. But anyway, that's by Sonny Rollins. So Oleo is really good. The bridge is just improvising. So, that's another thing that I like to do in my big band, like full group teaching is, we're just focusing on the bridge today. And everyone will take a part of the bridge. And it's all about internalizing, feeling this 32 bar form, feeling when things change, and feeling how to get to the next spot. Because a lot of jazz is the feel, right? So, and the groove. So I would... so then another melody. That's the theme, Miles Davis, and that was used. That's used so much, like even the end of "Take the A Train." So, whatever. But it's used as a tag and all of that. So this theme, was spread out over the whole head, and it works over rhythm changes. A more advanced concept on rhythm changes is being able to use the major scale really well. Just being able to be like... Coltrane's good at that one. So study some Coltrane rhythm changes, John Coltrane, and listen to how many times he lands on the major 7. Okay, so that's the next concept, which I'm pleased that some of my kids kind of use this stuff more naturally because they they just when they're listening to stuff, they recognize so many of these patterns, and one of them is at the beginning, little spots to do that. So just analyzing what that is exactly, you're on the minor 3 at that point. So da da dee da. Now you're in measure 3. Got a comment. I have, yeah, definitely seen Joel Fromm shred rhythm changes. Now I'm humbled. Yeah. All right. So, anyways, you're on the 3, and you're going 3. And it's basically I'm trying to think of it in concert pitch. It's hard for me because I'm sitting here fingering the instrument. But anyway, it's in tenor key. It's E, F, E, D, C sharp. So it's D, E flat, D, C, B natural. And this is a good study for all of you to just kind of look at exactly what that is. Da da dee da 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 da. How it's leading to each three, the third of everything, called targeting thirds. I studied this in great detail with Mike Steinell at UNT. Just in a summer, just one-on-one jazz improv lessons, and they were extremely helpful. And one of the things that he said to me was, he said, at that time, he said, "Ah, you're from Paris, Texas. Yeah, where'd you learn how to play?" Because he knows that, that there's not a lot of jazz in Paris, Texas. There's definitely rock, but anyway, so that's more my background. But and he just said, like, when you play, you don't necessarily know exactly what you're doing. You just know that it sounds good. So you need to learn what the theory behind it is. And I thought at the time it ruined my playing. I really did. But after a while, it was just like, I can see it all connect together. You know. Fascinating rhythm. That's a good one to play over this rhythm changes. Okay, so yeah, if you're really watching live and you want to ask some questions, go for it. So there's a spot there where you could play. You could play that B natural or concert A rather than B flat or concert A flat. You know. It's nice to sit on some of these notes when you're practicing these scalier ideas. So, and see which ones that you like. So here's an example of that. I'm gonna hang out on the 4 too much. So that'd be concert E flat. I'm gonna do a lot of that, but I'll resolve it. But I kind of want to demonstrate why you may not want to do that too much. That's kind of, it has its merit. So if you do stuff like melodically with it, hanging out on the 4 is fine. It's like the amen, But just a lot of that, I hear that a lot with younger players. They just hang out on the 4, and it's like, don't hang out on the 4. If you can make it cool, you can make it cool, But it definitely presents an awkwardness to it. Almost better to hang out on the sharp 4. Anyway, just fun stuff. So just finding your niche in where you know what sounds good where. Nothing wrong with using your ears on this, but you do need to kind of see if you can navigate, so you can show, especially in an audition kind of process where your vocabulary is really important. One of my favorites, and one that I used when I was a senior in high school and recorded for this thing, was the Charlie Parker thing from Thriving on a Riff or Anthropology. And I use that. What I like about that is it's in arpeggio. It's very simple. And then you make it an augmented arpeggio by just sharpening the 5. And then in the next phrase, he resolves it to the 6. I remember learning that on alto, and then just transposing everything over, which gives me a big headache. But anyway, there are other staples that you can use, like you can see how I'm sort of chromatically navigating. Sidestepping there. So, I'm just thinking about the solo I played for you at the beginning and some of the things that I did. That was the opening line. I've just been thinking about that lately, and that's from Tenor Conclave. That's Hank Mobley album, and oh god, it's awesome. Talk about that all day. But anyways, that's over rhythm changes. I believe that head. Yeah. Let's see. Maybe a little off topic. It seems I've gotten more comfortable soloing. My solo started sounding like a bunch of chromatic lines. Without a clear direction idea. Okay, so this is a great question. If you, when you're playing, it's not off topic. When you're playing and you feel like you're repeating yourself a lot, I think that was something I kind of briefly addressed earlier. But if you think it's chromaticism that's getting in the way, then see if you can play a solo without a chromatic, anything chromatic. Anytime that this happens with anything, not just chromatic scale, but anytime that you get in sort of a box and you're trying to claw your way out of it, you have to kind of step aside and say, okay, what are some other devices I can use when I solo? Or maybe start listening to someone different so you can be refreshed. So a good example would be just play a solo that does not use any chromaticism, and just play 8 bars. See if you can make it 8 bars. So here's the first 8 of rhythm changes. Okay, so I went 16, but anyway, just developing an idea that doesn't use any chromaticism. Then you can add some. You can add some back in, because there's nothing wrong with addressing that you kind of got yourself into a box and you're trying to claw your way out. So. And sometimes I do it jokingly, I know I'm doing it, and I kind of got that from just paying an homage to all these people. What's his name? Yeah, Lou Tabakin. I just always liked how he would, be like, suddenly explode on his instrument. He would just go straight down the instrument chromatic scale. Or, just giant leaps, things like that. So there's nothing wrong with seeing that you're limited in certain ways, and then the best way to get out of it though is to realize that if you have one idea, you have 1,000. You have 1,000 ideas. So and if you do find yourself repeating yourself, you're not alone. There's a lot of people that do it, including me when I talk. Also, you can try playing rhythm changes in different keys, and that'll get you out of your comfort zone, and maybe start just by doing a few that you know really well, or doing them in a cycle that you know. So And I would start with just the melody, you know. So okay, then then let's go. Well, might as well just go up a half step. So you can kind of find your weaknesses when you're doing that too. If you can't hear an idea in a certain key. And then maybe you'll find one that's very fulfilling, like the one that's up a half step from there. So I'm definitely more comfortable playing in D than I am C sharp, and I know that, so I'll work on it. But the main thing, the main thing is that it made me realize was like, I feel more free playing in a different key since I've been practicing only in B flat concert, you know, forever here on this video, and I finally have some more ideas playing them in different keys. You know, another cool one on saxophone, one that you can get in a trap in, is when you're playing stuff in concert E flat on tenor, so it'd be your F, you know. So that's sort of a trap key, I think, because you definitely want to go back to that root a lot, because that's the note that you, at least I do, I hear that in my head the most. And I think just from studying different saxophone players that are playing them in that, playing in that key, you know, F on alto, not concert F, their F, so concert A flat. F is just, you know, it's one of those keys that feels pretty good, but yeah, you can get into some traps. But yeah, so if you feel like you have tired out a lot of cool options while you're playing over your rhythm changes solo, preparing for this audition, you can try stuff in different keys and then transfer it over, and then methodically figure it out in that key, in the key of, you know, B flat. So maybe one of the ones that I was thinking that I did not use on this video when I was in a different key was, you know, the end of Ornithology, Charlie Parker. I don't use that near enough in when I play in B flat. So I use stuff like that, but it'd be cooler if I went. I use that one too much now, but I just like that sound. So it's just really getting confident with what you know sounds good and using your own devices. All right, I've almost tired myself out. So the other thing I wanted to recap that was important was playing like the digging roots ideas on the bridge. You know, all those 7 chords, they connect. A student yesterday said, Mr. Sawyer, I think of those as 2 5 chords. You're just changing the minor of the first one. 2 5, and that's really because the distance between each one is a fourth. You know, so on the bridge, it's you know, it's concert D7, and then it goes to G7, and then it goes to C, and then F, and then you're back to B flat. That's the only fifth there. The rest of them are all fourth away from each other. So You could start simple by going. Or you could play a 2-5 idea, you know. Oh, wait. Let's see. Anyway, I'm working out my own stuff there. But I like the idea of those, thinking of those like 2-5s that don't resolve, and so you're eliminating the minor. The first one's the minor chord, whatever. All right, we got some good questions here. Greg Fishman plays that quite a bit, yeah. Yeah. So there's you're studying the right stuff, and that's the main thing. Is you know, I don't even like calling these etudes, or I don't like some of the aspects of it. I love the educational aspect of someone studying rhythm changes for a duration, but not necessarily, calling it an etude. I understand it, but anyway, the idea is you're studying, the chords of rhythm changes and playing a solo over it. It's pretty cool, and the fact that it's at the state level means that that they're able to really discern who should be in the all-state jazz band. There's just a lot of good players, of course, but if you want to make the top, tone, man, you got to sound good. And that comes from being immersed. So practicing a lot, being immersed, asking a lot of questions. If you're new to it, just think of it as a long journey, because it's a lifetime journey. So I'm 35, and I've been playing since I was 11, and it's a long journey. So, yeah. All right. Let's see. I missed the question. Okay. Yeah. So, you can get lucky in these things. Think of it this way: how much percentage is the audition for as far as improvising? The improvising is only 25%. So, and that's up from what it used to be. It used to be the etudes were 80 apiece, I think, and 80 apiece, and then the final was 60, and that was out of 300 points. So you'd be now it's everything is 75 points. So 75, 75, 75, 75. So the etudes are still 75%. So someone a good way to look at the improv portion is that it could put somebody over score wise. So if you're neck and neck with somebody who prepared the etudes really well, then you knock it out of the park in the improv, and you one up them a little bit in all of these elements, then you're going to make a higher spot. And then so just like with everything, like just getting to that point in your region, making the top of your region, that means that you demonstrated a lot of really good qualities. So at the state level, you're against everybody who did that. And so you have to get the advantage or some kind of edge. Your etudes have to be so rock solid. You got to keep developing them. And just like any other audition, when I say jazz immersion, that doesn't mean play these etudes every day, because that would be kind of sad if that's all you did, because that's a lot of months of your life. So you want to know them really well and keep them up and keep learning different parts of them and working with your teachers, and and trying to play with these different videos that you see coming out. And because I definitely want to put out a couple more that play it slower, and that people can kind of use it as a study tool. But the etudes are so important to this audition. The best improviser in the state may not make all-state jazz if they don't have their etudes prepared enough, or there's a big stumble on them, because those are just significant points in at the state level. Everybody's a good player, so that's such a big part of it. All right. I love being able to answer some of these questions. I've never done a tutorial like this. So I guess what I'll do is I'll play it once more. I'll play it once more. It's definitely not my best. But hey, you get in the heat of the moment, you give it your all, and good things will happen. They're not all winners, but you'll be able to tell a lot on your recordings. So best of luck, everyone. All right, signing off. Thanks.